Welcome back to Smart Money with Emmy Hernandez. Last segment, we were talking about if you inherited an IRA from your loved one, there's some rule and step that you want to follow because some mistake can be costly. Okay, I mentioned that as a spouse, you have different options. You want to make sure that you look into spousal option really well before you make a decision. And I also mentioned that for an individual beneficiary, you can choose to either take it as a lump sum, but you have to pay tax right away, or stretch it out over your lifetime, which give you much more tax benefit on that one. That was the last segment. Now, with that in mind, I always tell my client though that when you inherited an IRA, or even for my client that plan to to pass on the IRA to their next generation, please tell your beneficiary, okay, that when you inherit an IRA, number one, though, do nothing. Don't do anything yet until you sit down with a financial advisor or whoever that set up the account IRA for the owner. Because if you make a mistake, sometime it cannot be fixed. It's ruined the entire planning that they have. So first thing first, do nothing, touch nothing until you talk to the financial advisor and explore all the options first. Make sure that you do the right thing, the thing that most appropriate for your own situation. Okay? So that with that in mind, the next item that we want to talk about is that if once you inherit an IRA, you also have to be aware that if you have more than one beneficiary in that particular IRA account, you each can split the IRA to become your own an IRA. Each one of the beneficiary can split it. Okay, in that sense, each one of the beneficiary can use their own life expectancy to stretch out the distribution. Why is that important? Because sometimes you may have beneficiary who are so much different in age. For example, if one of your beneficiary is your oldest son, James, which is, he could be 55 years old, and the other beneficiary could be a grandson, Daniel, who's only 20 years old. If you don't split, if the beneficiary decide not to split the account, the distribution must be taken based on the life expectancy of the oldest beneficiary, which means in this case, it's going to be based on James' life expectancy. So every year, the mandatory distribution that come out going to be a bigger amount, and it's going to finish this IRA in a shorter time frame. So Daniel, the younger one, will be at disadvantages because he loses the benefit of an opportunity to grow this account with the tax deferred benefit for many, many more years than James. Okay, so remember, if you set up properly, and this is why you want to sit down with a financial advisor before you're taking the distribution, because in that sense, the financial advisor can help you split up the account, and you must do it the correct way. When you split up the account, each account still have to have the decedent name on the IRA in the registration. It must read something like this. Bob Smith, decedent IRA for the benefit of James inherited IRA, something in that nature, in order to qualify at the correctly split IRA. Okay, so important, split it into if you have more than one beneficiary. Now, we talk about the split already. Another thing that you want to be careful about is that the mistake is that sometimes people treat that IRA, inherited IRA, as their own. That's what the title incorrectly. So sometimes you just roll over the account, you take the money, take a distribution from the IRA, take the check from one bank, and then go to another bank and say, hey, I want to open up the IRA with this money I just inherited. You cannot do that, okay? The only person that can do the rollover within the 60-day period like that is the spouse only. Okay, that's only spouse can do that. If you're not a spouse of the decedent, you cannot take the money and do the rollover and treat it as your own. You must do an inherited IRA and split the account or set up the registration or the title. Just like I mentioned before, the decedent's name still have to stay on the account. Okay, so that's a costly mistake, because if you happen to withdraw the money from that particular IRA and go and open up as your own IRA, the IRS will take that as a complete distribution from that account, and you will lose the IRA status, which means you would have to report the entire amount that you take a distribution of as a taxable income in that year, and you can no longer go back to have a tax deferred account anymore. So that's very important. So remember, do not do that. With this, complication right here, that's why you want to make sure that before you do anything, you check the rule and talk to the financial advisor. I say that a lot because I've seen these mistakes so many times, okay? And now, another thing that you want to consider before you take the further step after you set up an IRA for inherited IRA for yourself, you have to keep in mind that when you inherited an IRA, you must continue taking the distribution, or what we call RMD. Required minimum distribution have to come out from the inherited IRA. Some people think, oh, well, I'm not 59 and a half yet when I inherited this account. Why do I have to take the distribution? It's important to know, if it's your own IRA, if you are the original owner, you cannot taking the money out from the IRA before 59 and a half. Otherwise, you're subject to 10% early withdrawal penalty. However, if it's an IRA that you inherited from somebody else, you must taking the minimum distribution starting by December 31st of the year after the owner of the account passed away. Okay, so that's the rule. If you do not take the RMD, you miss the RMD, you're going to be subject to a big penalty. Big penalty is 50% of the amount that you're supposed to take. And not only that, you may be disqualified for the IRA status. And that disqualification, it also depends on the custodian rule. It's not the IRS rules to say that you're going to lose the IRA status by not taking out the RMD from the inherited IRA. However, some custodian may have the rule to say that if you miss taking the RMD, you no longer have that IRA and you have to take it out. So you'd have to double check those rules with the custodian of the IRA as well. But a lot of time, if you miss the distribution, you miss the mandatory distribution, what would happen is that you may end up losing the opportunity to stretch out the IRA. So no more stretch, you would end up have to taking the distribution out within the next 5 years. That's the longest that you can stretch. So now you lose the long-term tax advantage benefit for those IRA. Okay, so as you can see, these tax rules are quite complicated. So make sure when you inherit an IRA, take a look at the rule first before you make a move. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about some other different rules that you have to be mindful about as well.